Shri Murali, currently Joint Commissioner Academics at the Kendriya Vidyalaya Sangathan schools. He actually started as a teacher of physics and joined the KV system in 1987. And then he moved over a decade later to administration, educational administration, and he served in various regional offices of the KVS, known as Zonal Institutes of Education and Technology. So they have this very well structured system. He also served at NCTE for a few years as regional director. And of course, not written here, but I know he happens to be very passionate about Tamil literature and has a great interest in also language pedagogy and very quick to understand. I mean, he keeps saying, oh, I'm a science teacher and a physics teacher, but we found our conversations with him absolutely seamless. In terms of being able to see, and tell us what we could do together and so on. So he and his entire team, and especially also Mr. Eugene Lean, who is an English teacher there and who has been speaking on and off and will be there in the afternoon. He's also been, kind of championing, things like, bringing about some changes or certain new features in language pedagogy, and especially with, trying our assessment. And also Madam Sona Seth, who's a Mumbai DC. So these have been very, very key, a small key team that we have worked extremely closely with in order to come to this level of understanding of, the kind of, let's say, pros and cons of doing this kind of automatic scoring. Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for the nice words, Professor Rao. Even though she said that I have seamlessly tried to understand, but still I doubt. And whatever that I would be sharing is based on what did we do and what do we expect. So first I will take up the question, how did it all begin in KVS? With the release of NEP 2020, the Ministry of Education came up with the Mission Nipun Bharat. And in that Mission Nipun Bharat, it was envisaged that all the children, by the time they pass out grade 3, should have attained the universal levels of foundational literacy and numeracy, 100% attainment. That was the target. And now subsequently, matching it with the stages of school education, that has been brought down to grade 2. And that is the reason why some delay and things like that. So in the process, what did we do? And especially when this notification was made, that was the time the schools were reopening immediately after a break of 2 years during the pandemic. And the social interaction, which was otherwise available to the kids, was not available when they came to class 1. So we had a question whether the teachers will have difficulty in supporting these learners to attain the kind of outcomes that they need to attain. So even before the Nipun document was notified, we thought we will ask our teachers to make an entry-level assessment of the capabilities of students in the broad domains of oral skills, listening skills, writing skills, and numeracy. So this is how we started, and by the time we circulated, the mission document was also notified, and therefore we had to do something. We found a match between the two, what the thought process we had and what the mission document notified. They were one and the same. And in the initial days, again, the classes were in the online mode. And therefore, we advised the teachers to make this assessment. We designed a kind of a scheme, and then we oriented all of them. And with that, they made a measure of the abilities of the students. And then we thought that simultaneously NEP speaks about tracking the progress of students. So why don't we gather the data? So we started gathering the data also. And in the meantime, this requirement of Nipun Bharat came, and therefore we need to see whether the kids were attaining or able to demonstrate the outcomes. And since outcome is basically a competency, competency in principle cannot be assessed in one effort. And therefore we repeatedly insisted that whether they maintain records, they don't maintain records, we will not question. But the teachers need to be true to the spirit of the idea of competency, where we can rate the competency attainment of an individual only when we give multiple opportunities. In one opportunity you cannot rate, because there is a broad universal scale of competency levels. The lowest level is one, where the child or the individual cannot exhibit the competency on his own, or it requires support, to the highest level where the person can do it proficiently, not only do it proficiently but also can help others to do it proficiently, and in between you have two more levels. We exactly designed rubrics for all the learning outcomes in this way, and then educated the assessing teachers, supported them, did lot of workshops, did lot of interactions with them, and then we believe that people are doing it. And some small random checks also we have done, and to a large extent it was okay. And you ask the question, you have this data, how can you verify and things like that. In fact, this came sometime in the month of mid January. I picked up the list of top 25 50 schools in terms of English and Hindi reading oral fluency, and then I wanted to do it with the data which we have already gathered, and the task is on. And my first attribute was to find whether is there any single teacher who is contributing to this success. So I picked up only 10 schools in English, and to my surprise I found only in two schools the same teacher had taught for both the sessions. But in the remaining 8 schools which I looked into, different teachers have taught at different points in time. There are schools in which multiple teachers have taught in 2 sessions, and there also kids have done well. Now, what do we reason it out? Is the teachers uh, uniquely responsible for the achievement of the students, or is there something else? So these are questions we are trying to do it, but then I hope it will take time. Rather, we would be giving access to the schools and the teachers to look into the dashboard, the relevant data, and then come with their own intervention strategies. That's what we are proposing to do. I hope we would be able to take it forward. The next thing, from a system point of view, what I feel that this app can do. So one thing is that it can provide support to the school system as a whole. Say we are a school system as a whole. Right now we have 1,254 schools spread all over the country, including 3 abroad. And the demand for opening more and more schools is also there. At the same time, there are budgetary constraints. Otherwise, we would be having much more numbers. So the app can also provide support as a system, what has been seen here. But more importantly, there are people beyond the system, and our number is only 1254 compared to millions of schools. We are a small number. So how do we address? And therefore, the possibly the app also can focus on individuals, how the individuals can be supported. And if you use this app only to measure, I think it won't serve any purpose. And in fact, the measurement should be used as a tool for improving the fluency, and that should be the purpose. So how do we use this measurement as a tool for improving the fluency? I think the first stage is testing. The second stage is feedback. Already certain elements of feedback in terms of the individual students has been built in, and it is available for access to the students. Then it also needs to provide certain support practice strategies. And how or what can be the support practice strategies, I think I am the least fit person to speak about it. I have not done any hands-on work at the ground, but people can come out with whatever understanding they have. In fact, I just yesterday came across a very, very small study working with a small group of 1 to 4 children. And what they had done is they had worked out with a combination of packages. The intervention packages, they have identified 3 different packages. The first one is a listening passage preview. The next one is a repeated reading, and the last one is performance feedback. So 3 different packages are there, and they have tried to use combinations. So the two possible combinations with two of them would be listening passage preview and repeated reading. Then you have repeated reading and performance feedback. They also tried with all the three together. And what they found is that listening passage preview and repeated reading, as well as a combination of all the three, they have produced significant improvements. And it's a very, very small study in terms of the number of people tested. But then once we do it at the class level, once we do it in a larger level, then possibly we will be able to come up with some kind of a solution. And if these things can also be built in as part of the tool, part of the app, I think the purpose of the entire exercise would be achieved. Basically, how do I perceive this? So, if you look into the Charles stages of reading skills, there, where the first two stages, confirmation and fluency, the second stage, that is where this should be focusing on. And, in before these things were there, we had a very common phrase: learning to read, leading to the transition, reading to learn. So this is at that phase of learning to read being confirmed and reading to learn being initiated. If that particular thing can be addressed, I think with this tool we can make all of our students self-regulated learners. And if we can make our students self-regulated learners, whatever the system wants to achieve, whatever the government wants to support the aspiration of young population, they can be achieved. So how do we do it? How do we go about it? Is a very, very interesting thing. And more importantly, how do we achieve that one-to-one support? So if the teacher is available, if a tutor is available, that one-to-one support to the struggling learner can always be given. The struggling reader can always be provided. But then everywhere that may not be feasible. Say, for instance, when we go for large-scale recruitments, we also find our teachers can be categorized into multiple categories. Some of the teachers have exceptional capabilities. Some of the teachers require certain support, because you see, the spoken language capability is one part or one of the skills associated with a complete set of skills required for the. So we need innovative inputs on how the tool itself can replace a personal teacher. Maybe we can have some samples of good readings. Maybe I don't know whether like we have these chatbots, which are producing the voices based on the text. Something can be built in. I do not know whatever are the possibilities that could be. So if these things are done, then I am very, very sure that this effort can be scaled up, and this effort also can achieve greater amounts of success, much beyond what we are doing now. What we have just started is only a very, very, what to say, beginning. And from this beginning, we can go up to the highest stages that are possible. In fact, you see, if this tool also can be achieved, it can be used to achieve the very beautiful thing. I remembered when I was talking with you, Dr. Shailja, I asked my colleague to share that passage. I came across a very beautiful autobiographical anecdote in a book very strangely titled The Adventures of Learning. I do not know whether it is very well known or not so well known. I accidentally came across this book more than 3 decades ago. And surprisingly, I find it even today available in Amazon. Of course, not in Amazon in India, but Amazon elsewhere it's available. Very small book written by a professor, a pro chancellor of a university, Syracuse University to be precise. And in that, he had given a lot of anecdotes. And one anecdote, what he had given is about the autobiography of a botanist by name Lauren Eiley. How did he start reading? It's a beautiful three paragraphs passage. In that, why I am coming to this, I'll just say. In that, his father happens to be in the merchant navy. So he stays with the family for part of the year, and in the remaining part of the year, he is on sail. And therefore, when this boy was growing up, once he comes home, comes with a story book on Treasure Island, starts reading out the story. And then by the time the father had reached up to the level of the fellow stepping into the shores, he had to set on sail. And the other option he had was his elder brother could also read out to him, but the elder brother also had a busy life, and so he also couldn't read it out. So the third option for him was his mother, but somehow he was not comfortable with the mother reading out, maybe not a very literate kind of a person. And so what he says, because the story had come to such a poignant stage, I couldn't leave it. I started reading and I missed the precise meaning of a few words here and there, but I could make the sense of it, and therefore I continued to read. And he says that's how it initiated him to be a very prolific reader. So, same way, this also can do it, because you see, when people start reading, they are actually making a transition from oral listening to reading, decoding from the heard word to decoding from the read word. So this is the difference that transition is making. So even Charles speaks about this very beautiful thing when grade 2, when you say that confirmation of reading fluency is being tested, the listening capabilities are superior compared to the reading capabilities. And when they progress and then move towards the next stage, there, that is where the reading is actually leading to new learning. There initially the listening and reading capabilities are at par, and a stage will come the reading capabilities have to overtake the listening capabilities. So, and this is in this interface, I think this tool can do a great service. And your all your inputs are extremely important. And I believe that from the utility point of view, from the teaching perspective, to me, it offers a lot of opportunities. And how do we take forward? I believe it's in all our hands. I think these are all I wanted to say. Of course, a few technical things I thought I will share, but then since we had very, very elaborate session in the beginning, I will not get into any of those things. Thank you. And I would like to take any questions that you have in whatever efforts that we have done so far.
Have you, with the Hindi data, what kind of prosody was measured, or I mean, how it was done?
No, in fact,
I'd like to understand a little in detail that. How...
No, Hindi. What we have only given is that they had gathered the what to call the pronunciation for each of the words that they have given us the markers. Then we had given the phrasing part of it. We had only given the phrasing part of it. The markers we had given to them, where a short pause has to be given, where a long pause has to be given. Nothing more we had given them, rest only he can say.
Maybe this is a good time to play out some Hindi examples. Yeah.
Please.
Can I ask a question while you play that?
Yes.
Sir, I wanted to know more around the teachers and their own, how they sort of perceive this whole exercise, more from a standpoint of understanding their students is one thing, but also you particularly mentioned that assessment have to move more towards the support. So what is the sense of the teachers? Are they seeking more support to improve their outcomes?
In fact, we have not yet started that exercise. You see, the dashboard is getting finalized. The first results, that consolidation came in the second week of Jan. We are in the last day of Jan. So soon we would be circulating it. And personally, few teachers have already asked to know about the outcome. We are getting queries. And some of them, they were also worried whether they would be branded as a not so good teacher and things like that. That also we need to address. Yes.
I think the instructions given to the teachers as part of the change, that's rather important, because we just got into technical detail. Take this, press that, record this. So they had no idea. It's not the teacher who's being evaluated. This is only a monitoring and observation. So we need to come up with something nice that makes a lot of sense. So we are planning to take the help of the KVS management to do that.
I think that we can just wait if there are any further questions.
Yeah. Are there any questions? Yeah.
I'm loving the aspect that this is an evolving app, and I think there is contribution that can be made on how to use it. But I'm also thinking that this is an evolving area of research, right? Would this data be available for researchers to use and learn from? Because I mean, working on Indian languages right now is a very new area, and we're using a lot of Western research and sort of making assumptions, and I think there is space for that. So, sir, is that something
I don't know what can I answer to it. In fact, you see, whatever we have done so far is only on an informal arrangement. In fact, we wanted to put it firmly with an MOU being signed, but then our legal counsel had issues related to the breach of data security. And then he was anticipating that in case if some parents could make it up an issue, then will you be able to handle it as a system? Then we conveyed it to IIT. They consulted with their legal consultants. Then finally we came down to this concept of stripped down version of data. So we have only stripped down version of data where nothing can be pinpointed to anyone. And I think collectively we have to take a call how it can be shared with others. We will definitely take a call. Yes, yes.
Pitching in this group, right? I'm feeling like that. Like, what can we do with this?
Just to add to that thought, the institute's under pressure to take public health data and do stuff with it. And again, because there are ethical considerations involved, first step is to anonymize these things. There's also workarounds where rather than the institute holding data, we construct the servers and hold the data at, for example, the KVS. And then you create a separate research database there, and that is what is then made available to the research community. So there are workarounds. Yeah.
So I have a question.
Yes, please.
So I think one question was around the KVS data. Does it represent the whole of India, or is it representing only the elite? I think this question is coming, and then based on Shailaja ma'am's question, that I just want. Right. Yes. Any
I
comments?
think that's not very correct. There was a time when majority of our student population used to be category 1, that's central government employees wards. And currently our category 1 population is around 35 to 37%. So you have around 63 to 65% of the population, which includes the state government and then non-government employees. And exclusively non-government employees is exceeding 50% of our total enrolled population. And this 50 we have reached because of two primary reasons. One is that we grant 25% of the admissions to RTE. Then the second is that there are some places where the count of government employees is coming down. And we do not keep the seats vacant. Say the sanctioned class strength is 40 and there are 100 applicants. So what we do is that the government employees, we grant them admission first. And whatever remaining seats are, we have a priority. In terms of that priority, we fill up. So there was a time when we were not true representatives of the common population, but today we are more or less moving towards that stage. Towards.
This is very useful information for me also to know, but I'm comparing, for example, with the kind of populations that Lineage might be working with in tribal areas.
And in fact, the UDA's data for the last few years is also clearly indicating that majority of the children are migrating from government schools to low fee collecting English medium schools. Majority of the students are migrating. That's what UDA's data is also indicating.
If I may add, there is another thing, KVs are actually everywhere. So when you mention tribal, we have KVs in Chandapur, we have KVs in New Marjorie. Like those are the areas perhaps you are referring to. So we have those KVs, and we have children coming from what we call the migrating or the floating populations in large numbers. So actually, yes, to a certain extent, we can say that we are representing the whole of India.
I would disagree with that because, even if, the lowest of your band will be a privileged child as compared to where I or Madhukar work.
I mean, we are talking about government and non-government employees, whereas he's talking about people who don't have livelihood, who don't eat, and all of that. So we're talking about an entirely different population set. So if you bring that population set into this set, you will probably approach the FLS norms, is my suspicion.
That's possible. That's possible. In fact, you see, during the pandemic time, when everyone migrated to online support. We also migrated to online support, and because of significant percentage of this population who do not have that kind of resources at their command, we had to make some kind of alternate arrangements to support them. In fact, right in this campus where we have a KV, the then chairman took a lot of personal efforts to arrange scheduling and things like that, where devices are shared. You would be surprised to know he came with a solution that the teachers would record the lessons in the day and make it available in the evening. So all these things we have done. We are also facing that kind of issues, but as you said, not for majority of our children. You are right on that count.
Thank you, sir. Since we have 2 minutes, I'll just show some Hindi examples.
Yeah, we'd love to discuss that later in the afternoon so we can hear it. Yeah.
This is an example of a really good child reading this.
एक राजा था, उसका एक बड़ा सा राज्य था। एक दिन उसे देश घूमने का विचार आया और उसने देश भ्रमण की योजना बनाई और घूमने निकल पड़। जब वह यात्रा से लौटकर अपने महल आया, उसने अपने मंत्रियों से पैरों में दर्द होने की शिकायत की। राजा का कहना था कि मार्ग में जो कंकड़ पत्थर थे वो मेरे पैरों में चुभ गए और इसके लिए कुछ इंतजाम करना चाहिए।
So this is an example of a really good child, and this is from Nagpur region. Yeah. So it's not the north either.
So is that acceptable prosody, or is it sing song, or? Oh, yeah. Those struggling readers, we have plenty of examples also. Yeah. So, yeah.
So just before I play, you can make out the child is decoding the word and then speaking it out.
एक राजा था, उसका एक बड़ा सा राज्य था। एक दिन उसे देश घूमने का विचार आया और उसने देश।
So you can make out the child is sort of whispering the word first, which our system is not really decoding, but wherever the child is saying bada sa rajya tha. So all these are showing up as insertions over here, but so you have examples at different levels. So I think in English I played out a case where the child can read part of the word and then guessing some other word, and here are cases where the child is able to understand the phonetics of it, decoding it, reading it. So you've got a wide variety, a wide spectrum of children reading. Yeah. No, sir. This is actually we've seen this case a lot with English as well, where children are whispering, where it feels as if someone else is speaking it. But we've actually, when we'd done data collection, we'd found that the child is only whispering it and then speaking it out. So we were also initially suspecting whether it's prompting at their end, but it's actually the child whispering. So, yes, sir.
Yes.
The 1960s and 70s, the whole idea of writing records came from New Zealand, Marie Claire. So she observed and she noted all these things, even where the pauses are, because they are scanning ahead before they attempt the oral reading. And
I think this is the type of reading which is of more use for the teacher, because this is where you exactly need to support it. And I mean, even if the child is reading something like this, it doesn't mean that there is no comprehension, because we very closely work with kids. So especially the bottom, that we showed the last bracket where you don't really assess the fluency. This is a very useful data to really look at, because that's how you decide how to scaffold the child at that level. So, I mean, whether you have achieved the fluency. Huh? Yeah.
Hindi from Bangalore would be interesting.
Your matra study also can happen here. And we found, for example, gha, dha, dhumne, ghumne, and they go on like that. So there are a lot of things that can be just mined from this in terms of, quickly, yeah. Okay.
start from their level.
Correct. Yeah.
So I have a question for
Yeah.
Shelja. Just from what you presented this morning, and I'm just looking at English as a language which is very different from Hindi, which is very phonetic, right? So what is the importance that oral fluency plays when a language is pure in the form of like a Hindi, Marathi, where it's very phonetic, versus where it's English, where actually there is more, I don't know, I mean, I don't know the technical words, but more value for that sight word because not everything is as phonetically read as in Hindi. So would you sort of, is there a differentiation in how we look at language learning because of the nature of the language?
There is and there isn't. As in, we don't have necessarily an easier script, set of scripts. It's a mistake to think that we have an easier script because English is deeper. So the way we talk about it in technical terms is deeper orthography. Deeper orthography means the spellings are not all predictable from the same aksharas. As we know, I mean, from the same letters. Right? One letter C can make a sound, it can make a sound.
Exactly.
So we have a deeper, that is, we have a deeper and less transparent orthography in English. Sorry, English has. So we think that because every akshara in Indian script corresponds to one and only one sound, therefore our scripts are easier to learn. But the cost we have of having one akshara for every sound in our script is that we have many aksharas. We have many aksharas. So, you know, the way you can look at it, you know, average script in India has about 49 to 52 varnamala, varna. उसके ऊपर से हमारे स्वर के दो दो चिन्ह हैं. हम ऐसे लिखते हैं, आई मीन ऐसे लिखते हैं, सिर्फ मात्रा से भी लिखते हैं, बेस्ड ऑन द प्लेसमेंट इन द वर्ड, इन द वर्ड, है ना. आपको आम लिखना है तो वो वाला, आपको माँ लिखना है तो सिर्फ मात्रा. तो matra acquisition is two symbols the child is learning for each sound. On top of that, we have samyukt akshars, that genius of Indian scripts, which in Hindi you may think कि आधा अक्षर से काम चलाते हो, पर एक एक स्क्रिप्ट है, जैसे कि हमारे कन्नड़ा में, मतलब नॉट माइन, आई डोंट नो इट, बट आई एम जस्ट सेइंग इट इन सॉलिडारिटी विद द प्लेस आई एम लिविंग इन, वेयर द नंबर ऑफ यूनिक सिंबल्स, जैसे कि आपके देवनागरी में क्षत्रज्ञ है, where you have unique symbols, ksha is plus sha, right? Like that in Kannada we have number of unique symbols for that. तो इतने सारे जब चिन्ह हैं, when we have so many different signs, the script takes on its own complexity. So people, as I'm saying, like Sonali Nag has been a pioneer in showing that Indian script is actually quite challenging for children. Another thing, English is read left to right, right? And you may have other scripts which are read right to left. Our these scripts descended from this are read left to right, right to left, up to down, down to up. Visuals, especially, we have very complex script. Okay, there are times when the matra is on this side, but you have to say it. You have to, if you want to say ki, short ki, usne bola ki, that one. The matra small e is here, but you say the sound after the ka. So we do not have a simple script for children to learn. Now, multiple studies, including the small study that we have conducted, Lyril, has shown that children are really struggling with Indian orthography for different reasons than English. And different reasons and regions and all of that. So different challenges are there, plus minus is there. So of course you would approach the teaching differently, but it takes a long time to learn our scripts.
So I think my question is more than, because of the nature of the language orthography, does it mean that we spend more time with children on certain phases or the stages of language learning because of the nature of the script? Would that determine?
Acha, Nilesh is telling me that he'll be talking about it, so I'll let him talk. See, we did a mapping of children's word reading because we tracked children from grades 1 to 3 in our longitudinal study. We found that they roughly correspond with eras where it's alphabetic, just say aksharik for Indian. So pre-aksharik, partial, full, consolidated, we could hardly find in our sample in grade 3. But in the partial aksharik phase, we had 3 sub phases
in Indian scripts, which is not seen in English, that first children tend to identify the varna. जैसे कि मकान है तो वो makana, okay? Then they start reading matra recognition comes in a very incomplete way. So when a bunch of varna is learned, then only they start recognizing matras, which these kind of distinctions we don't see. And when some matras are being recognized, along with that the samyuktakshars start getting recognized. But samyuktakshar reading is not as big a contributor in the analysis we conducted as matra reading. Matra reading is extremely important in Aksharic languages for being fluent with word reading. So that is what we have found in our limited sample, but we welcome others to please validate that. Yeah. Yeah.
You know, from a very practitioner's perspective, what we have seen is like, yeah, I mean, given, I mean, there are these considerations about the you know, the visual complexity of the script and how a sound is mapped onto it and how the orthography of a certain language maps, all of it is there. But generally, if, I mean, my red flag would also be at this particular point that when we see fluency and comprehension correlations in the Indian syllabaries, we get to see that there is often, maybe through populist perception, that there is a focus on the speed. And that speed does not necessarily translate into comprehension in any way. So, I mean, we have had this research, which, I mean, we didn't publish it, but we were trying to see that if the fluency was going high up, or no, we were trying to see if we include more and more books into the child's day-to-day children's literature, into day-to-day child's classroom processes. We found that after a certain point, because we wanted to fix fluency through a lens of comprehension as well, we found that finally the comprehension plateaued.
So it's a inverted U where you'll have diminishing returns on comprehension after a certain. So when we say fluency is necessary but not sufficient for comprehension, so in mathematical terms it's an inverted view. So you fluency and comprehension will go hand in hand. Beyond the point, you have children who are fluent but are not comprehending.
Yes.
So after a certain point, simply adding speed does not give you any value for comprehension.
We saw that plateauing. We did not see the inverted U as
It will. I mean, so they.
maybe our sample size wasn't that.
So that is why comprehension instruction has its own interventions. And what comprehension interventions, when you select children, it is children who have peaked already with fluency and they're still not comprehending. So they need specialized comprehension interventions. So simply fluency interventions do not remediate the whole package.
On that note, I think we should break for lunch. So yeah.